When people ask me why, I usually answer, why not? So a couple of years ago, when I was really poor and I was actually living in a tennis hall here in Gothenburg, and people asked me, why do you live in a tennis hall? I answered, why not? And I would say, come on, it's 4,000 square meters. It has indoor tennis courts, a sauna, a solarium. There's a great spa just around the corner and a golf course. And it's just a 5-minute drive away from the city. I mean, isn't this what all the rich people dream about anyway? And they would laugh, and I would say, well, that's the way I describe my living conditions, trying to pick up girls at some nightclub in Gothenburg wearing a fake Fendi hat. So that makes them even more curious, and I had to continue my explanation, and I would say that it all started as some sort of serious joke. How I actually couldn't find an affordable place when I moved to Gothenburg. And my friend, who was the owner of this tennis hall, he would say, well, you can always stay in the tennis hall for free. And I would say that, oh, really? Are you joking? Because I would. And he would say, no, are you joking? And I said, no, I'm not joking. So that's how I ended up living in a tennis hall. But as it turns out, my friend, the owner of the tennis hall, he had had problems with break-ins. Like people would break into the tennis hall during nighttime, so he needed a night guard anyway. So it was actually a win-win situation. I was offered to stay there based on what I could offer in return. And in this case, it was my mere presence during nighttime. And this kind of win-win thinking regarding housing was quite common back in the days, but somehow it got lost with capitalism. But I hope to bring it back. And I hope to do so by opening a free hotel where the guests are chosen on the basis of what they can contribute to the community. And in the meantime, or in the process, I would like to remind people of a lovely little thing called hospitality. This is the story about Creators Inn and how I got the idea to start a free hotel for creators. This is Sweden. It's actually a quite large country. It's the third largest in the EU, but we're still only 9 million people. So there's lots of space for everyone. But still we tend to live in small apartments in the suburbs of our cities. And Sweden actually has the most single households in the world. And for most of my life, I've lived in one of these single households. But because I've always lived small and alone, I tried to make my friends feel very special and welcomed, and I would offer them to stay in my flat, and I would cook them food or guide them around town. And if there were a bunch of people or a couple, I would lend them my apartment and I would stay at a friend's house. But I felt like my friends coming that I wanted to do something more for my friends who came to visit, because I felt they enriched my life and also the city of Gothenburg with their presence here and the activities they did. I have a lot of creative friends. So I thought about different ways of improving their experience and their experience of my apartment. And my first idea was to turn my apartment into a jungle with living plants and animals and maybe a waterfall. But that was quite expensive and hard. So I went for my second idea, which was to turn it into a hotel room. And this would be a hotel room where creatives, like my friends, could stay for free. And people asked me why, and I would answer, why not? So I started looking at hotel rooms in order to find inspiration about what I should do with my apartment in order to make it feel like a hotel room. And I came to the conclusion that if you're turning an apartment into a hotel room, it's not so much about buying new stuff as it is taking away all the crap. So we started with just taking all the crap away. And then you have to buy a few key items. They're not so expensive. It's a big bed in the center of the room. And then you can learn some tricks like putting up a curtain on a blank wall to give the illusions of a more grand room with big windows behind it. And that's what we're doing there. Saw it from a German hotel. And then we put up like this photo wallpaper of a nice Gothenburg skyline to make it more of the kind of a little bit design hotel. And then of course you mount the IKEA furniture and you're done. And this is the final result. This is the first edition of Creators in Gothenburg, and I think it looks really nice despite the low budget. And Creators offers free short-term accommodation for visiting creators. This is the view from the balcony. And we also made these kind of small products, the kind of soap, the shampoo, bathrobes and slippers, because they added to the experience of it being a hotel room. And I think it added a lot of value for the guest, because they didn't only get to stay there for free, but somebody had taken the time to do something extra for them. And I think that's part of hospitality. So the first guest checked in and out. On the left we have a guitarist who needed a place to crash for a couple of days in between tours, and on the right is an American garage band called the Vibrarians. And they were all very, very happy with the room and the service we provided. And their happiness actually rubbed off on their surroundings, so it spread a great vibe around town. Everybody was happy because of this. So I started to realize that my crazy idea wasn't so bad after all. And so did the rest of the world. As it turns out, nobody had done anything quite like this before, so the project gained a lot of attention. It started as it always does nowadays, in the blogosphere, and then spread to all kinds of mainstream media. And even though 99% of all the articles praised the project as groundbreaking and great, this one actually got me into some trouble with the nice people who had helped me get my apartment in the first place. They saw the article and then asked me, like, why are you letting these seemingly dopey people live in your apartment? And they actually didn't take why not as an answer. So I checked it up. I didn't really do anything illegal. It hasn't been tried, but since I didn't charge anything for the room, it wasn't illegal. But I felt it was maybe time to move away from home anyway. So I had already hooked up with a local fashion brand that were sponsoring the project, and I soon found a housing partner here at Lindholmen, and one of the guys from Creative Collective Lot is here today. And they had created this magnificent space, which is a combined working and living area, which has big or large shared spaces where you can work. And then they have really small sleeping quarters. So together with Lot, we created the capsule hotel version of Creators Inn. And now we're gonna see when a previous guest from New York, Kevin Doyle, introduces the room for a TV news team.
So let me show you to my room. This is the Creators Inn by Elvon, and this is my room. There's a do not disturb sign on it right now. And this is where I sleep and do some work at night and have everything I need.
So this was the capsule hotel version, and it's similar to like the concept of Japanese capsule hotels, where you have a small sleeping quarters that's private, and then you share larger spaces such as kitchen area, workspace, toilet, bathroom with the other guests. But the good thing about this capsule, which is much better than the Japanese one I've tried, is that Torsten, the constructor, and the Lot team had created them in a way so they're totally soundproof, and there's also fresh air intake, so you sleep like a little baby. We had a big DJ from Baltimore, and he slept 14 hours straight, so it's a good. And also last night, fellow speaker Magnus Larsson stayed in this room, so if you want to ask about his experience, you can do so later. And we have some other guests here tonight that's stayed in this room, so it's a resource. After the capsule hotel version of our project, we set out to create the first hotel-in-hotel version, which is a concept we've made up. It's similar to the shop-in-shop concept in malls, where it's like a part of a hotel becomes its own unique hotel. And we did so at a hotel in Stockholm, Södermalm. Whereas the first Creators Inn had been all about like turning an apartment into a hotel room, this was more like the opposite. This was about turning a hotel room and make it feel like a home away from home for the creators. And in order to do so, we incorporated a lot of personal stuff, such as magazines and books and living plants, and we used secondhand furniture. Oh, and if you see the newspaper, it says allt färre drabbas av könssjukdomar, and that's also good news. So the room in itself consisted of three separate rooms. This is the local library, and then we had the dreamy study, and then we have the relaxing spa. And before designing this room, we actually just asked all of our previous guests in Gothenburg and other creators to describe their dream room. I mean, who better to explain how we're going to do than the people that are supposed to live there? So we tried to incorporate as many of their ideas and thoughts as we could. As for instance, having something to read while you're at the toilet. And also, this is a collaborative city map of the local area. It's a huge map on one of the walls in the living room. And all the guests can recommend like restaurants, bars, clubs, shops by simply filling out one of these pre-printed notes and putting them up on the wall. And this is my recommendation for tasty and cheap kebab down the street. So that's constantly growing with more and more guests coming to the room. We also had this kind of working area where the creators can work, and we would put in like all kinds of papers and CDR records for the DJs, and there would actually be clothes in the wardrobes if you lacked something. And we had this cork notice board where people could put up like inspirational material, leave a message or a business card, or a Star Wars pest dispenser for the next guest, as we can see in the middle of this picture. Instead of a TV, we put in an old-fashioned vinyl record player enabled just because we wanted people to actually listen to music. And the records were all lent out by us and our friends. So you can actually see who the record belonged to. And if you liked it, you can email them and ask them to, if you want to buy it. Or you can write a little note if you liked it or not. And these kind of small things brings a small stories to the next guests and also to the owner of the records. So it's all about these kind of small things. And we would add something like an iPod connector so people could play their own music, because little things make a huge difference. Since this room didn't have a balcony like the first one, which the balcony was really appreciated at the first edition of Creators In, instead we tried to grow our own fresh air. And we did so actually by a formula presented at TED by an Indian researcher. I think his name is Kamal Meatel or something like that. But if you haven't seen his speech, you should check it out at TED.com. It's amazing. It's about how you can get fresh air with just a certain amount of houseplants. And the room also incorporated a free fixed gear bike. And if you needed some advice, or you needed to speak to somebody or take a coffee, we had a creative concierge service with 8 different people you could call up. Hey, I feel like playing video games. Are you up for that tonight? Sure, I'll do anything for my free guests. Everything was free of charge. And I think it was this project is all about communicating respect in every little detail. To make these people feel special and feel welcome. And I think that's the essence of hospitality. And we hope to spread Creators In outside of Scandinavia next year, but we like to take it slow in order to keep the heart and soul in the project. So who gets to stay at Creators In? What's our definition of creator? Well, basically we have a very wide definition of creator. And for us, it's more important. The reason for coming to town is more important than the title of your business cards. And we try to support up-and-coming creators from different fields, the one that would normally end up on someone's couch. And in order to find them, we work with local independent organizers, giving their guests a place to stay. But everyone is free to apply through a web page, and they can motivate why they should be granted a free accommodation at Creators In. But you need what we call a valid reason. A valid reason to come is some sort of creative activity, preferably together with local creators and incorporating the city in some way. A lot of people ask me how it's financed. It's not so expensive, but it's financed through sponsors and partnerships. And since it's not so expensive, I really hope that this should be the future of marketing and PR. So we're at TED right now, and TED is all about ideas worth spreading. So why do I consider this an idea worth spreading? Well, because I think we've created a win-win-win-win-win situation that I'm going to go through really fast. The creators get free accommodation with a high service level. The local independent organizers doesn't have to pay for their guests. The city becomes more attractive to creators, and the creators makes the city more interesting for the inhabitants. There's also a creative exchange. There's natural meetings between local and visiting creators, and our partners get goodwill and great PR. And summed up, this is something I called creative social responsibility. And creative social responsibility differs from corporate social responsibility. Corporate social responsibility is about writing policy documents. Creative social responsibility is about actually doing something. And I hope these are ideas that can be exported and implemented around the globe, because what a wonderful world that would be. Thank you very much.